don't you? So I think it's a great opportunity, provided that we have the infrastructure, we have the support from the government. Why not create something? But what should we create? We should always look for something that really does not exist, create a demand for something that is new, that is not in the market. So I thought that was a great opportunity for us to create, and I think we can talk later, but I'm really very much into brands. I think the community here in the UAE is very much, or let's say very brand focused. So we focused on creating a brand, which was very important. Our objective was to create an international Emirati brand. And also create an opportunity for something that does not exist. We actually did not go and copy one of the options that are available in the market. Instead, we focus on creating a new opportunity for a restaurant that sells authentic Greek yogurt with toppings, with sour cream and sweet toppings, which is actually introducing people to eat healthy food. Unfortunately, the population here is addicted to junk food, which is a major problem. Now, we thought we would like to create something different that actually exists in other countries around the world, but is not available here. So I hope we succeed. I hope you all visit us and try our dishes. I don't know how much more time I have.
No, we just wanted to understand. That's perfect.
Okay.
Dr. Bernhard.
Okay. First of all, thank you for inviting me to this panel discussion. And what I like to say is that looking backwards and looking forward, we are at a very interesting intersection. Because on one hand, we are moving towards, let's say, food that appears to be less healthy. We are looking at big food who tries to be exponential, but still works in a large part linear. But there's a lot of things happening in big food to actually accelerate innovation. This is where the opportunity for smaller companies come in, because they are looking for helping establishing ecosystems, helping improving their technology pipeline and working with small companies to become exponential. At the same time, we see smaller companies who are, for example, like Beyond Meat, who are already exponential. And I think I really like your first slide. The first word on your first slide is the most important word which you can think of when you establish a startup in the food business. Anybody remember what that was? It was trust. It was trust. Trust of the consumer in food. And everything is around that trust, the empathy, the connection the consumer makes with that food. If you as a startup has something which is enhancing trust of the consumer in food, can you make it? Can you sell it? Can you make money on it? You're on the right track. And I think I'll stop here and maybe later.
Thank you, Dr. Bernhard, for recognizing, because I genuinely feel, literally, whenever I go all over the world as a futurist, people think I'm going to give an AI, blockchain, crypto, tech talk. I don't. I talk about ethics and humanity and value and trust, because that's the basis of all of that. And when I speak to startups, they ask me what is the most important thing that you can do as a speaker or even as a startup. What do you think would be the number one most important thing a startup needs to be? Extended from that. Authentic. Speak from the heart, deep inside, believe and create that trust. Only authentic, empathetic people can create trust. Otherwise, it's just a little brand, and it comes and it goes. And brands based on trust are the brands that last. Thank you, Dr. Anvita, my dear friend, she is one of the founders of the Dubai Angel Networks, which is an amazing group of a bunch of 10, 12, 15 people who came together. And basically, they are nurturing young startups. And they are taking a risk. They are trying out little companies and companies that the banks, any bankers here, shame on you guys, because they're the only ones who get the money. And you just keep it in your pocket and you show it in your balance sheet. You got 2% for SMEs, but you need to have 3 years of audited accounts before you get the first 100,000 dirhams. They sign the checks.
They do as well.
They do SMEs, yes. Yes, sorry. See, you're not bank. You're not bank. I'm just joking.
Well, thanks, Tariq. think from an investment point of view, it is where I'm right now, but my journey also started from a startup, building a startup called Lazada in Southeast Asia, a full-fledged e-commerce company, growing up fast and then eventually selling it to Alibaba, coming to Middle East, heading Brazil and OLX, and now getting into investment. So for me, it is something that I look at the startups coming, that what the challenges and journeys that I have gone through, and now coming from the other side, looking at them, what is potential and opportunity that they can have, especially in the Middle East and Africa market, which I see that like after Silicon Valley, the wave in India, in Southeast Asia, it is the next market where everyone is now tying, all the big investors are now getting into, foreign investors are now investing money and acquiring companies. So the food tech is one of the big sectors, or fintech, and that is where like I want to bring some of the value added from the learnings, from the experience that I've had, and now combining with this region and the investment experience, the risk of most of the corporates or institutions here. I'd like to talk about that.
Super, thank you very much. So this is basically an introduction of three people from completely different backgrounds and structures, and really now we're going to go into the guts of this conversation. Dr. Bernhard, you work with large corporations and now you're sitting on boards. How can, forget banks, but how can large corporations, the 10 that I had put up there amongst those kinds of companies, work symbiotically with startups and encourage them to be able to grow at that level?
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier in my remarks, large corporations, they do certain things really, really, really well, where they have big brands and they nurture these brands and they distribute them worldwide. One thing where they have recently changed, because they're trying to be more agile and more nimble and faster in bringing out innovations, is they do not necessarily want to invest in anything and everything which they think they'd like to be in. In other words, they have a deficit, call it deficit in R&D, or an intentional deficit in having all the competencies and capabilities which they would have in order to be fast and nimble in the marketplace. So therefore, they are looking for a pipeline, an innovation pipeline, which is richer, which is moonshot-like. You know where the name moonshot comes from, when Kennedy said we're going to put a man to the moon and bring him back alive. Nobody in NASA had any idea how to do this. And companies today are putting out moonshots. They say we're going to develop a food product with these and these properties, even though nobody in R&D might have an idea how to do this, but it makes people think different. So big companies try to become more nimble, they become more innovative, and they are looking for innovations. They can look at universities, they can look at suppliers, they can look at flavor houses. One thing they have looked only recently is the startup world. So when big food companies go to VC firms, venture capital firms, either corporate venture capital or classical venture capital firms, they can and they have established partnerships, and they say, you know, we want to work with you because we want to have access to new innovations with companies who are working exponentially, who are growing exponential. So the venture capital firms would just love that, because the big companies can de-risk their investment. They can say, we know the consumer very well, we can tell you whether it's a good idea or not a good idea. And once they've said that, they can connect with startups. So then the startup has a connectivity to an ecosystem, venture capital plus big food, plus retailer, where the startup can essentially bring their idea faster to the market. So this kind of an ecosystem is extremely powerful.
May I challenge you on that, sir?
Absolutely.
Big pharma and big food are not incentivized to bring about big change because they're making the big bucks. Therefore, if exponential companies come in and remove water need based, one of the biggest lines for Nestle, for example, and get water from the from the atmosphere and replace that whole line of business, what incentive what a Nestle or another water company may have to support that company because they'll destroy them.
They would say we rather buy our own disruptor than being disrupted.
True, true.
So in that sense, many big food companies are in categories which are either stagnant or declining. Yeah, they're not exponential. And so the big trend I see is that big food companies are looking out for innovations coming from the outside in. It's also the old word of, the old innovation model is it's a big wall around the company. And all they invent comes from 1,000 or 2,000 or 500 people. They say, why would we be so arrogant to believe that all we can do is coming from 500 or 1,000 people? Why not open ourselves up to say, who else in the world can help us?
Sure. Great answer. As you can see, I'm I'm asking tough questions and really get, because otherwise this is just platitude. So I hope you will work with me on that.
Absolutely.
Anvita, can you share, you hear 10 pitches every 2 weeks or 5 pitches every 2 weeks. What are you looking for in that startup in terms of their core quality? And especially when you're looking at the food business, what are you looking at? What you're looking for? What sort of touch points for you?
So the metrics really differ from whether you're looking at early stage versus growth stage. So when I was a part of Naspers, it's a growth stage, so we of course have a lot of data to look at the companies and go deep dive. But as an early stage, there are just few fundamental things that I, personally coming from the experience, that I look into. One is the team, and then I say the team, it's a team which can execute. So I'm not, especially like people who have been experienced, we don't really get impressed by how the good startup is a storyteller, a good orator. It is really like looking deeper into that, whether this person can execute or not. So it need not be an innovative concept. E-commerce is not any innovative concept. I mean, most of the Kareem was not such so much of innovation. It's all about execution into any market, localizing it. So if you take up a team where the concept or idea is not that big, but you have the confidence in the founders that as soon as you're gonna progress in the journey, and he's going to maneuver, because for a startup it's very important to be agile. You never really end up in the business model as you start. Even if you will show me your business plans and projections and growth, none of the VCs buy it. It is a way to understand whether you have thought through all the aspects, all the challenges, all the problems that are going to come through. So the team, the leadership is very important, right? That you can understand after having lots of talks with them, posing challenging questions, that they are able to execute. Second, it's about the scalability. So you can take up any concept from any market, but does it has the potential to become scalable, whether it's to the regional, whether it's to the global outset, and what is the problem that they're trying to solve? So most of the times, entrepreneurs just think that they will come up with such a brilliant, crazy idea, and that's where the valuations and the potential is defined, but it is that is a consumer going to buy it? You can develop whatever. Is something that's solving any particular need? Some of the basic questions, but the answer really lies in one of these basic questions.
Thank you very much. Amira, you are a classic example, the SME, and you are creating a homegrown, locally developed business. What were your early challenges? Who were your early supporters? And most importantly, before you answer that question, what's your why? Why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? Because she didn't answer that. I was hoping, because one of the things when I'm sitting on juries and stuff like that, I always ask, what's this person's why? If this person has a genuine, meaningful why, then they have half a chance, because otherwise the first bump on the road and they fall over. And I agree with execution and scalability, but I would also add the why on it. What's your why, man?
Okay, sorry, I'll answer your first question, which was our challenges. Obviously, we're selling a new concept, which is Greek yogurt. Unfortunately, the market here is very unconscious about this great product because it's a very healthy product. People always tend to think, why do I have to pay this much for yogurt? Because we have the traditional yogurt and you have the Greek yogurt. Now there's a big or huge price difference between this and that. It was very difficult to sort of educate the, let's say, the local community on this Greek yogurt and make them understand that this is not actually a snack, it's actually a meal. You can have Greek yogurt with savory toppings, with fresh fruits and vegetables, and it is actually going to be a very full meal for you. Now, it is the very same customer that is usually seeing the burger as a full meal for him or her. So how can we steer them away from, you can still have burgers, but you can't have a burger every day. So how do you steer them away from the junk food and bring them back?
I know people who have burgers every single day.
Okay.
Go down, we'll just drive down Jumeirah Beach
I still
Road.
have burgers, don't get me wrong, but I can't have it every day. So how do we make people like healthy food? Obviously, we still had to introduce some things with some unhealthy toppings, but you cannot survive 100% if you are 100% healthy. Now, you also spoke about one point, which is being authentic. Now, this is very important because we created that trust. I had so many suppliers, I had so much pressure from suppliers that came to me and told me, why do you sell frozen Greek yogurt? I have a powder that is going to save you so much cost. You can just mix it with water and sell that ice cream. And we always refused that because we always wanted to stay authentic and sell fresh frozen Greek yogurt.
Which also connects to Dr. Bernhard's plus.
Exactly.
I will add to this point. The authenticity, the integrity is super important because digital today, everyone talks of digital. Ask anyone, they will talk of the buzzword. Whether they understand or not, they cannot differentiate between analytics or AI or deep learning, blockchain. It is just in every startup. I will actually quote one of my conversation with Eddie Lambert, who's the he's now the chairman of Sears, which got bankrupt. I had an opportunity to have one-on-one conversation with him. And he came from this whole traditional retail industry of having a big empire, and all he was like going into digital. That I have to develop, they developed Sears in US almost 30 websites of online, and they had a loyalty program of Sears. They wanted to capture the customers, and they hated Ubers of the world and Amazons of the world. So in there, if you would ever read the shareholder letters, it starts with criticizing all these big, the young startups. And I asked him that digital is good. You want to focus on it, but every restaurant wants to also become digital. You can make a fancy website and an application, an app. But if the food is not good, it's not sustainable. You have to make sure that the food is good. So how do you even make sure that your assortment or whatever you're selling appeals to the millennials? Because you can build a very good layer of all the convenience and all, but never focus on your underlying asset. And that's where I think most of these big corporates just are being followed on what other startups are doing it, or the big companies, but not really looking to what assets or strengths they have. So even with the corporates, I totally believe that the assets or the strengths they carry is a lot about structure, a lot about organization. Startups really go very fast, they're very agile. We fail fast, we learn fast. We learn from online, we try it, we don't really know it, it's gonna work or not, who can cry. But those learnings, when they combined, or married with a big organization, that is where you can really produce a very sustainable growth in organization.
Thank you very much indeed. May I go back to you, Amira? What's your why? Why are you doing this?
Why I'm doing
You're
this?
so qualified, you can get the best job in the world, you can do anything you want. You live in a beautiful country, you've got so much. Why are you doing this?
Honestly, I've been working for over 16 years in the corporate world, and I thought it was about time to create my own brand. I wanted to create an international Emirati brand, to see a brand succeed and become global. It will not happen overnight. The government has provided us with the infrastructure, with the support, but it is really different when you see an achievement that you have done for yourself, for your country. I thought there was a great opportunity to introduce a new element into the food scene, in the local food scene here. we didn't have any restaurants with Greek yogurt, fresh Greek yogurt. I mean, this is quite famous in New York and Los Angeles, but we didn't have these concepts. So I thought we could create a demand for something new.
Thank you. The reason I